of Education meeting. Mrs. Ramirez-Adams, please take the roll, please.
Thank you.
Member Frittner?
Here.
Member Agakanian?
Here.
Clerk Weisberg?
Present.
Vice President Ferguson?
Present.
President Tabbitt?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Weisberg?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
We acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Chumash, Tongva, Fernandino, Tatapaim, and First Nations on which we are learning, educating, and living.
Thank you. Can we please stand now for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Reporting out on closed session, it was discussion purposes only, no actions were taken. Do I have any adjustments to the agenda this evening? Okay, thank you. Any items for future agendas? Okay, thank you. Request to address the board. An individual or group representative present this evening may address the Board of Education on any agenda item by completing a white, we'll pretend it's white, it's okay. By completing a white request card and turning to Mrs. Ramirez-Adams. Speakers are requested to state their name prior to speaking to the board. Not more than 5 minutes may be allotted to each speaker, except by unanimous consent of the Board of Education. The superintendent may refer the matter to the proper department for review. The district is providing alternatives to in-person attendance for viewing and participating. Any individual or group representative may address the Board of Education on any agenda item or subject within its jurisdiction during one of the 3 public comment sections. And we do not have any virtual speakers this evening. Okay, so I have one request for public comment from Maggie Huerta.
Which is one is not aware. It's not for an agenda.
You?
But I think we
Can I ask that, because there's one card in, that we consolidate the public comment period?
Yes.
And allow for non-agenda items to speak?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Just press the button, or is it on already?
I think it's on.
It's on.
It's on. Tilted.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Hill and members of the board. We are here to express our concerns about the changes happening within the food service department. Burbank Unified School District food services employees' shifts are being moved outside contracted hours. Some longtime employees are being transferred from their sites. Parents who had gone through the intra-district permit process to bring their kids to their sites of operation are being transferred as well. Our lives are being affected beyond the labor force. The employees who have been affected by shift and site changes are now facing new challenges, from ride sharing to trying to find early drop-off childcare, which is not offered at all school sites. In some cases, they will be rushing from other jobs just to be able to get to work on time and vice versa. Employees are being dismissed in the middle of lunch service, leaving their team understaffed at their busiest time. So we are being asked to work split times with up to 2 hours breaks in between. Schedules are being purposely overlapped, depriving our 1.5 to 2 hour employees the ability to apply for extra shifts elsewhere. In other instances, 15 minutes are being taken away from an open position, discouraging new potential applicants. During the 2021-2022 school cycle, our service numbers increased tremendously at all of our sites. At some of them, the participation doubled. Childcare and elementary schools saw students excited to come to school because we were serving their favorite food, relieving their anxiety of being back at school. On the secondary sites, we created a welcoming space to reconnect with old friends and make new ones. We were extremely understaffed, but we did everything to ensure that we fed every student that came to us. It wasn't easy, but we did it with a smile because we love what we do. Our plea to all of you is to look into what is happening and take action and help us find a solution. Consider the shy student who's looking for a familiar smile to make his day better, as well as how this is affecting our team's health and productivity at all levels. We are a few days away from the start of the school year, and we are more than ready. But we need to have good leadership, communication, inclusion, and quality and respect, but mostly we want to be heard and seen for who we are as people, not just as a number in a budget spreadsheet. Please do not forget about your Burbank Unified School District Food Service employees, because we are essential workers who are proud of being part of the Burbank Unified School family. And we are ready to come to work every day to feel the children of this community at school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Huerta, and everyone else who came and stood behind you. Okay, I have no further cards, so we'll go to staff responses.
Thank you, President Tabbitt, and thank you to Ms. Huerta and the entire food services team. Some of the concerns were raised. I know you met with Dr. Weisberg, and it was raised to Ms. Kukta and I. We met with Dr. Weisberg to review some of those with Ms. Bogdanovich this week. There was also a meeting this afternoon with Dr. Neiman, Ms. Kukta, Ms. Bogdanovich, Ms. Bauman, and Ms. Chilton from CSEA, and they started talking about the concerns. They want to be able to have open doors where if people have individual concerns, because I know it impacts everybody differently, so that you can reach out to Ms. Kukta and Ms. Bogdanovich. They are more than willing to meet with you and talk about the concerns. I know Dr. Neiman and Ms. Kukta were in the meeting. If there's anything else that you want to share, I was not in that meeting.
I believe on Tuesday, they're going to be available for anybody that would like to come in. We're going to reach out and let you know about that opportunity and how you can make that happen. And I don't know if any of you are attending the training on Monday, but on Tuesday, and if we need to schedule later in the week, we can do that as well so that we can hear what your concerns are.
So I just want to piggyback onto that, because our whole goal is to work together with you and problem solve. And so Mrs. Chilton is the CSEA labor rep, and Laura Bauman is your local CSEA president. And if you want them to attend with you on Tuesday, they can do that.
Yeah, Ms. Bauman will be there.
Yeah.
Talk to her, and our labor rep will be there too.
Okay, so if you need her contact information, I believe Maggie has it. I can also give it to you if you want to talk to her ahead of time. But they'll be there on Tuesday with you.
Okay, thank you, staff. Board member responses?
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out and speaking. We know the food service workers, from the time we had to start dealing with the pandemic, were among our most important workers. Because that was one of the first things we were doing, was serving lunches to everyone, and being out there. So we absolutely appreciate the work you do and want to honor that. It sounds like there is a lot in the works here, and not knowing the particulars of how the scheduling was done, I don't want to delve into it too much myself, but I'm trusting that between Ms. Kukta and Dr. Neiman, and hopefully we can have productive discussions, and Ms. Bogdanovich and the CSEA reps, as well as all of you. I have to believe we can try and find a resolution that might, work, be something that can work for you. I know you do have a lot of members who, as you were mentioning, work multiple jobs, and and hopefully we can be accommodating of that, and the other issues that you brought up as well, the childcare issues. Those are very important, and we know it's a huge challenge. So. I just want to know, for you to know, we do value the work you do and know how important it is for all our students. And hopefully we can find a resolution through these upcoming meetings. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you very much, and for showing up. And I want to make sure that once you have these conversations, if we don't reach an agreement, you know that you can reach out to me and we can talk about this. Our son loves having lunch. He loves the lunch breaks.
I know we've seen an exponential number of students that would not come in before that are coming in, and they are so happy. I can tell the stories of the school site where I am at, and they come and they are happy because there's something that mom maybe doesn't let them have at home. But it's a treat that they'll have at home.
No, I mean, and it is true. And as someone who deals at my job with food scarcity, where I work, 70% of our students at college get 1 meal a day. 1 meal a day. So, and there are a lot of families who are suffering the same way. So thank you for what you're doing. And again, hopefully we will resolve this. But just know that I know my colleague has been talking to you and you've been reaching out to her. Thank you, Ms. Weisberg, Dr. Weisberg. But also know that, our heart is also with you. So thank you very much.
Dr. Weisberg, please.
Thank you for coming. I know that one of the things that is hard about coming here is the concern that you're going to feel like you're complaining. But I said this to you before, and I'll say it again. I don't think anybody here hears that. What I hear are people who are really passionate about the work that they do and are concerned that some of the issues that are coming up are preventing you from doing that work. So, I mean, I think I speak for everybody up here when I say you're coming with a lot of positivity and a lot of hope that these issues will be resolved. So, but I know how hard it is to come up here and do this. And so enormous thanks to you and respect to you to give up a chunk of Thursday night to come here. I think, I learned so much from our conversation, and I think I let Maggie know and immediately sent my notes to Dr. Hill and to Ms. Kupka. And so just wanted to share your concerns, and I know that they immediately responded, like as soon as the conversation was done, and I got to sit down with them. And so I think it's important to share that everybody is team, let's figure this out. So there wasn't a moment where everyone was like, it's fine. It'll figure itself out, or there isn't a problem here. Everybody really sprang into action. It would be great if it's possible to be updated after Tuesday on how the conversations go and what progress is made. But I hope you feel like we're advocates for you. I feel that way. I hope you'll continue to email and call and reach out and let us know where we can still improve. I know that part of the challenge is feeling like you're often not heard. And so I'd really like to work on that so that you feel like you are being heard and that you have this room of people that you can reach out to at any point, and that we're not just going to say, thank you for talking, but we're actually going to do something about it. So this feels like a really good beginning. I know we're looking at another really challenging year, and you're going to be asked to do an enormous amount. As you were last year. And so I'm excited to continue working with Ms. Kupka and Dr. Neiman and Dr. Hill to make sure that you have the support that you need, and that you feel like you are valued, because you truly are. And I know that for part of last year, it didn't feel that way. So I just want to thank you again, and I'm looking forward to more conversations and more coffee talk.
Amazing. Thank you all for coming down and spending your evening with us. Thankfully, it's a quicker room tonight, and you're not going to be having to stay too long. Having said that, hear you loud and clear. And And it's a little shocking, frankly, because what was it, a year ago, we were frankly thanking you for hustling as much as you were, darting around the district, being moved around to cover vacancies, you name it. And now we're here again. And, you know, a pretty consistent pattern of leadership and communication keeps being brought up over and over and over again. So we need to do better by you. We owe it to you to do better, and I'm sorry this has caused the amount of disruption it has to your life. I am excited to see Ms. Kukta and others and Dr. Neiman engaged, and I'm grateful for that, but want to stay tuned. And if this issue is escalated by a single board member, I didn't know you guys were coming tonight. So I would ask that staff, when we are aware of staffing issues or morale issues like this, that the full board be informed so that we can all ask questions equally, so that we can all make inquiries and be a part of the solution as opposed to it trying to be handled without us. You all have come to us because we are the last point of appeal. You've tried everywhere else before coming here. It's not fun getting up at that microphone. So I see you. I appreciate you. And I will track this, but let's stay in touch. And this is not the only issue I know you are managing. Real morale issues, real hard work that is understaffed at times. We get it. But this is, as Dr. Weisberg says, I think this is important to be the first part of the conversation so that we can keep demonstrating to you why you matter and why you do make a difference in kids' lives when they show up, ask for that meal, and you, with a smile, hand it to them. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and we'll work to do better.
I know, thank you very much for coming out. It's not easy to speak up sometimes, but I want to say thank you to our staff who heard members of our family in BUSD, because at the end of the day, that's what we all are. Whatever our role is, we've come together to provide service, whether that service is a meal, a smile, education, whatever it takes. It all blends together so that child leaves that school that day feeling better or feeling happy or feeling heard or whatever it takes. And you provide that with meal service, with your smiles that you give. Sometimes kids come to school and, you know, for whatever reason, the person that they met in the cafeteria that day is the one that touched them the most. And so you're a vital part of our family. And we need to hear you and listen, and I'm so glad that staff has come forward and done that. And please, like in any family, when you've got something to say, speak up, because we want to hear you. We want to know what's going on across the board. Every section of our district we want to hear. So speak up. It's certainly okay by me, by us, by district staff. Sometimes things happen and we're not all quite aware that it's happening. So thank you again for coming out. I appreciate it. And go home and relax. You've got a lot of work coming up ahead of you. If you want to stay, of course, you're welcome to stay. Okay. Thank you. Reports, moving on to 9, reports to the board, 45-day budget revision, 2022-2023. And you were pretty excited when you came in, Mrs. Kutka, so.
Good evening, President Tabbitt, board members, staff, and community. It is always nicer to come when we have good news, and the adopted budget that the governor and the legislature put through on June 27th had some very positive changes from the budget that we based our budget on, a district budget on. So I'm excited. I'll move forward if we can get the PowerPoint, and we'll start looking at what some of the changes are. We're going to talk about the budget cycle, kind of review where we are in the year on the budget. This is a 45-day budget revision, so we'll explain what that is. We're going to be looking at what the changes were in the 22-23 final state budget that was adopted on June 27th. We'll look at the impact on our multi-year projection, and then questions at the end, but please stop me. I think it's often easier to just ask as we're going through, so please stop me as we go through. So the budget cycle, you will have seen this before. I've added the yellow box there with the 45-day budget revision. So we need to present this information to the board when we do implement this year because of the 27th of June. We're looking at August 11th, so we meet that requirement. This is not something that you need to do, but this year it was really highly recommended that all districts do it just because of the significant changes. What will happen, though, when we come at first interim is we'll look, the expenditures will be put in because we need to decide. It just happened so quickly, we don't know where to put those yet. So we booked the revenues in the multi-year projection, but as we put through the plans, we'll adjust that. Right now, we just have it falling out to fund balance. So, and I want to let you know, Allie Lowe is here. She's our Director of Fiscal Services, and she and her team, besides, having to work with all this, but also with closing and getting ready for the audit. So there's just a lot happening right now. So thank you for your help and for being here. So the 45-day budget, again, like I mentioned, is because of the significant changes, and that's called for in Education Code 42127H, calls for public review within 45 calendar days, any budget revisions a school district decides to make based on the enactment of the state budget. So in this, you'll find out this is all very good news. What we do need to look at, though, is the ongoing versus the one-time money. So the budget revision, when we look at the additional funding, came in both forms. And more on the one-time front because of the pending recession that economists can't quite agree when or if or the extent, but the state was being very cautious. They have lots of money, we've all heard that, but rather than give it and commit to ongoing money, they've looked at 60% being one time. So when we go through, you'll see what the restrictions are and the spend by dates. 40%, though, which is a pretty significant minority, is ongoing. You'll see that's mostly in LCFF and in the COLA that they gave us. So again, moving on and looking at the local control funding, you can see that the final budget increased, the cost of living adjustment went from 6.56, which was what our original adopted budget was based on, almost up to 13%. So if you look at the chart below, that's like a doubling of the increase. So that's a pretty significant difference. Again, ongoing money, if you look at the terms to the right, for us, that calculated out to be $6,739,000 and change. So, and also part of that is not just the COLA increase. They looked at how we calculate the average daily attendance. So we looked at the 3-year average. Plus, if you participated in an independent study, there's a 1-year average daily attendance mitigation. And we qualified for that, which is a huge benefit. So, and that'll carry, within, it affects the 3-year average as we move forward. So kind of an ongoing benefit, which will eventually go away, but it's good for now, for us. That's kind of countered, though, by our declining ADA. So when we looked at the ADA, typically the district has about 96% attendance on an ongoing basis. We, because of COVID or whatever reasons, we were dropped to about the 93% level. So it's the butts in the seat rule, and if the kids aren't in class, we don't get our money. So that's pretty significant. So the budget trailer, though, made significant changes to how that's calculated. So kind of talked about that on the last slide. So there's an ongoing change plus the one-time attendance yield adjustment. So moving forward to some of the big buckets of money. So we've got now what's called the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. So again, one-time monies. And if you look at that, that's $11.7 million. So that's huge. The deadline, if you look at the center bottom, the funds can be used through the 27-28 school year. It'll be distributed based on the second principal apportionment ADA, multiplied by the 2021-22 and duplicated pupil count. The reporting requirements are still a little bit vague, but we'll have to report interim expenditures to the California Department of Education by December 1st of 2024, and then December 1st, 2027, and then there's a final report that will be submitted on December 1st, 2029.
I'm not sure if this is a question for you or Ms. Cuseo or Dr. Hill, but or another time entirely, but sort of the assisting with long-term recovery from COVID is broad. Yes. And so I know that I'm just wondering, and again, this might be a different conversation, what are some of the things we could use it for, and what are some of the things we could not?
That is one thing that we've been asking the state and the county to get clear guidelines.
Great.
We've been reading the budget trailer bills to help guide it, but some things for what we're already doing, interventions through the school year, summer school, SEL, social emotional learning, mental health.
Great.
So we're looking through that, but we want to come back to you when we actually have a template or guidelines, because we don't want to say we want to try XYZ
Sure.
and they come back and say, no, that's not going to be acceptable. But that's a good question. We will I'll send the trailer bill around to everybody, but that's not the final requirements.
And I will say Ms. Lowe called everybody across the state, school services and her contacts at FICMAT and LACO. And it's just still a little bit vague. But as we go through the other buckets, you'll see what those can be spent on. So again, this is just following under probably your basic LCFF, not that, but we'll see. We'll have to see.
And the next slide will give you some of those it breaks that big bucket down into a couple smaller buckets.
Yeah. So actually, Mr. Fritner.
Quick question. It says funds may be used through the 27-28. So we have 5 years that we have to use them by. Are there any parameters about having to use it use certain amounts within certain
Not that we've seen so far.
timelines? So, but we just kind of have to wait and see more of what we don't have information on.
Yeah, I mean, school services always has an update, like a financial update in mid-July, but they really didn't have any information either. So if you look, though, at this slide, let's see, we'll get back. I'm not sure where we landed here. If you look here, we've got increase or stabilize instructional learning time, decrease or stabilize staff to pupil ratios, which is something that we did when we supported keeping the class sizes small, and we kept teachers on that maybe would have otherwise, based on the enrollment, maybe would have laid off, but to keep class sizes small, so that's where that would fall in. Close learning gaps, pupil supports to address other barriers to learning, instruction for credit deficient students, additional academic services, but you can see some of these buckets are a little vague, so we're waiting for more guidance. So the next big bucket is the art, music, and instructional materials discretionary block grant. And that discretionary is really pretty key, because it really is, it seems to us in our questions that we've asked that we can pretty much spend it on anything. Now, they did name it art, music, so of course that's going to be maybe some of the implication is that we put at least some of the money towards those programs, but it's distributed on a per pupil basis based on the 21-22 P2 apportionment. One time again, this has to be encumbered or budgeted, planned for through the 25-26 school year, so it's a shorter window. $8.8 million. So again, a big bucket. So we will have to have a plan, but again, it's very vague. We don't know what that looks like. CDE is usually really good about pushing out templates. We've not seen that yet. I think it happened pretty quickly for them as well. So looking at this, some of the things, though, that they recommend that we spend the money on is standards-aligned professional development, instructional materials and professional development aligned to best practices for improving school climate, digital literacy, physical education, and learning through play, diverse book collections and culturally relevant texts in English, pupils' home languages or combination of languages, operational costs, which again is pretty broad, and lastly, COVID-19 pandemic-related supplies. I will say, I don't anticipate having to put much money towards that, because LACO has come through and said that we can order PPE from them on a monthly basis at no cost. So I don't know how broad that is, if that's masks. And we are participating in the LACO program through Haluna, which is who they partnered with to get at-home test kits for. And so instead of the LACO testing grant that we had last year, it's too bad they didn't do it last year, but they're just going to provide us, as long as we operate in their guidelines, free test kits, both at home and in an observed setting.
Again, my favorite thing to ask questions that I don't know that we have the answers to. But has LACO spent any time talking about monkeypox in regards to vaccine, testing, PPE, any of that?
Our head nurse, Ms. Aguilar, has been on a call, and they've just want to make sure we're aware. They've created a website where on the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, they created a site on monkeypox. There's nothing specific for schools right now. They gave us some of the best practices. A lot of the COVID practices of cleaning and sanitation is helpful.
Yeah.
as of today in LA County Department of Public Health, there are 0 cases of children under the age of 18 with monkeypox. But that does not mean we should ignore it. But I just want to share that we're getting information and we're being proactive on how to make sure we have safety protocols in place.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Agakanian.
Thank you. So I know there have been some challenges in local reimbursements from the controller's office. Have we had any issues here? No, good. All right. Thank you.
No. And if I can do a little plug, we had a vaccine clinic yesterday. We worked with the LA County Department of Public Health, our LACO contact. They connected us with MEND, who is a local urgent care facility. And we had a clinic from 2 to 7 yesterday at Burroughs. We pushed out flyers, and we've offered vaccine clinics throughout the course of I'd say the last year, and with the kind of mediocre responses. But 2 days before the event, we used that My Turn to have people register. We had 133 registrants 2 days before, and I talked with Lenora, our head nurse, this morning, and she thought they had upwards of 150. And they had an infant room, so there were actually infants that were getting the COVID vaccine, but we also offered other vaccines. So, for example, and we had men also went to Muir during their 7th grade registration, because at that grade level, before entry, there's some additional vaccines that they need to have. So DTaP, and I can't remember, the other one started with a V, if you guys remember. But anyway, we offered those, because then those students can go to school and start on the first day of school. Otherwise, they would be turned away. So at Muir, they were there, and there was quite a line. We would hope next year to do more, and I think we'll do a better job at pushing that out. But we offered that at the clinic at Burroughs. So Providence St. Joe's was there to assist families if they did not have insurance and wanted to connect with somebody. So I think next year we'll build on that and maybe offer some more services. But that was quite successful. So, and again, no cost to anybody. They either it's insurance or they put it through for federal funding. So, okay. Another bucket, Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, or ELOP, and this may look familiar to you because we've had parent plans come through before and what our spending looks like. This provides funding for after school and summer school enrichment programs for TK through 6th grade. So the program details, it's funded at $1,250 per unduplicated pupil. There's a grace period, so even though the program starts in 22-23, we can carry that over to the next fiscal year. So the program plan is local education agencies must operate ELOP pursuant to the requirements in Ed Code, including the development of program plan. So I'm assuming we don't know, but we're assuming we're just going to build on the existing plan and we just have more money to spend. And the interesting thing on this part, and I know Ms. Lowe called all over the place, is what does that look like? Is it forever funding? Is it ongoing? And the answer that we got was it's ongoing until it's not anymore. So we think 3 years, but we don't know. And so this is going to be very challenging to see what we spend the money on. In an earlier slide, when you talk about one-time versus ongoing, you don't pay for ongoing expenses with one-time money. So this is going to be a challenge, and we'll wait to see what we can do. I think one of the things that we were toying around that came up in cabinet was offering maybe a tuition discount for ATB. I don't know if you want to speak further to that.
Yeah, we started talking with Dr. Knappich. That's something we can flexible is reduce rates for students that are qualify for introduced lunch population for ATB, so that way we can attract more students into the program, and when the funding goes away, then we'll be able to increase it back. That's better than trying to hire a program where families are dependent on this after-school care, and then the next year we find out we can't keep doing that. So we're going to come back as we get more details on what we can and can't do and have a presentation to the board.
If we went down that pathway, does that mean that a program would expand? So those, 'cause now we do if you were in it last year, you have an opportunity to sign up, but sometimes things happen where people don't get in, or they forget, or we've grown another child or two from that family. So is it possible then for the program to expand?
Well, the first thing we'd want to look at the demographics of the students in the program, see if we can give a discount. And then the second, if we did expand, we'd have to have conversations about classroom space. What would we do the next year if we didn't have the funding with hiring?
Right.
And those would give you the pros and cons so we can make a decision going forward.
So out of curiosity, today, LA Unified, there was an article about the shortage of teachers and how they're getting all this funding, but having trouble recruiting, and now the UTLA is getting ready to ask for a 20% increase. I'm curious, is it income-driven, or is in terms of district when it comes to funding for those kind of programs, or does everyone get a...
Well, you can see each of the buckets that we've looked at tonight are the funding is based on something different.
Yes.
So,
But do we get anything for retain and retention? And
there was a small portion for teacher retention in there, and it wasn't a significant amount, but we can research that.
I'm just curious what we get compared to other districts.
Yeah.
So two of the items that we talked about, the expanded learning opportunity and the learning recovery, is based on the at-promise students, the unduplicated count. So a district like LA Unified will get a lot more money in that category. The arts, music, instructional materials, discretionary block grant, that is based on average daily attendance. So we get the same amount as them, but they have a larger student population.
Thank you.
So this bucket is 4.6 million, and that's annually. So for as long as they decide to provide this funding, it's right now currently at 4.6 million a year. So that's what we built into the multi-year. The next bucket is looking at special education, and this increased the base rate to $820 per average daily attendance. For this year, the total special education increase was 1.3 million since adopted. However, this will decrease. It's based on ADA, so we're looking at that amount dropping to, it'll drop by $1,203,000. Other funding increases, when you look at the change from district adopted budget, involved our transitional kindergarten add-on, LCAP, or local control accounting program, and transportation. You can see the changes that we built into the budget and the changes from adopted to the 45-day revision. So you're looking at about $900,000 in changes for those programs.
What is transportation?
Well, right now it's really interesting
Sorry,
because
I didn't turn on my microphone, but there's no one here.
Well, for transportation, this is a big issue for districts that provide home-to-school transportation. We do it for our special ed students, but there are a lot of districts that provide it for all their students. So this is big, and I think it funds 40% of what the transportation cost would be. For us, it's very minimal. And there was some talk. I attended a CASBO, which is a professional organization for chief business officials, and they were concerned that districts that only provided special ed transportation might in some way be penalized. But I haven't heard anything, and I'm not sure where they got their information. But for us, it's not a big change. So.
And is it only used for special ed or home to school?
No, that would be the legislation is for home to school. Everything, the people that transport all of their students.
Home to school. Okay.
Yeah, good question. So moving on to our multi-year projections, this is what our multi-year looked like at adopted. And you can see that we had an operating deficit every year, although that's partly because we're spending down some of those one-time COVID monies. It left fund balance pretty healthy. And if you remember, we assigned a lot of the fund balance to avoid that 10% cap. So that's what we were looking at adopted. With our 45-day revision, so we adjusted the revenues to reflect all of those revenue amounts. And you can see where it falls down in the orangish yellow row below. So the increase in funding just for next year alone, $31,686,000. And that builds for the ongoing. You can see if COLA affected and building on that, you can see where that builds out that third year of $51.5 million. Obviously, when we look at first interim, we're going to budget those in expenditures, so that will be moved up into the expenditure row. But right now, it just happens so quickly that we don't know where to quite put it. So. Any questions? Because actually that is the end of the presentation, so happy to answer any additional questions that you may have.
I move that all reports come like this from now on.
Yeah, it's always nicer to deliver when there's some money
Yeah,
that's
it
being
is.
distributed.
We've had so much bad news in the last few years. It's nice to have something, even with one-time money.
Yeah.
It's nice. Yes, Mr. Ferguson.
Thank you. Somewhat off topic, somewhat on, because we talked about the vaccine clinics. So I know that there's apparently no children today who are infected, but as of August 2nd, the LA Times mentioned that there was a Long Beach child who was infected with
Yes.
monkeypox. So it's not just a gay disease, right, or which is what's kind of being perpetuated, and that it can't impact kids. It can. So if we can work with Toby or whoever to actually have a plan, and potentially as secondary students return in particular with our LGBT populations, potentially have clinics available. I know that there is limited supply of the vaccine, but
Correct.
You have a number of factors on school sites, gym clothes that don't get washed, things like that, that can contribute to the spread of this. And frankly, there's a community that I'm a part of that's very much stigmatized by this. So I would like to, instead of not having a plan or not thinking, that it's not going to impact young people, that we actually have a plan in case it shows up.
Yeah.
With potential clinics in the fall.
Yeah, we did look at that. It's the smallpox vaccine, in case people
Right.
didn't know what they use. And there's a shortage. So
There is.
I had a conversation, though, a couple days ago, and I guess there was a monkeypox outbreak in 2002, and they nipped it pretty well in the bud. So we're hopeful that they take the appropriate steps here, although it's really disconcerting so early on that they've already run out of vaccine. So that is problematic, but we can definitely explore looking to adding that and maybe having another vaccine clinic in the future.
Yeah, and I have been in touch with Catherine Barger's office, with county supervisor as well. They are being very attentive to this and trying to get it out to especially impacted populations right now. Obviously, gay men are most impacted. That impacts students too. So I think she is a partner in trying to at least secure potential doses. They are out there, but they are being prioritized. So if we can, or if we can make contact on that front, I think it's really important to do so.
We will definitely do that.
Appreciate it.
Dr. Weisberg.
Might be, I don't know who this is a question for, so get pumped. Dr. Hill, I think we were talking about this in our check-in. I think one of the most important things that was in here, besides all of the good news, is reiterating that one-time funding should not be used for ongoing expenses. So I think it's important for us to be like, how are we going to share the information with our BUSD community? Because I think if you look at this, and we all know how impossible it is to understand ed funding, it's so difficult, but so that we can communicate to our families and to our teachers and to everybody, like, we can't use this for salaries because we can't use it for X, Y, and Z, because I think that's really important. And then the other thing that we were talking about too is explaining the nightmare scenario of our increase paying into STRS and PERS and how that also changes every year. So I know it's sort of an impossible task, but I wonder what we're thinking about in regards to how we communicate the good news, but also frame it in a way that's realistic.
I was thinking this would be a good opportunity for the Budget Advisory Committee. We have representatives of parents, staff, all the unions, so that they can give us different perspectives of this is how they understand it now and how we can create some easy one-pagers to explain where we are. Also, as we think about planning, it's a good opportunity. They were working on surveys for if we have to do budget reductions. I think it'd be a good opportunity for them to work on a survey that we can get out to our community about what would we do with one-time funding and get prioritization conversations if that's the direction the board would like to go.
I think we only flagged, though, last time that surveys were becoming less effective at actually gauging what opinion was. So if we can figure out other means to determine that, whether it's town halls or focus groups, things like that, or I think that's important.
I do too, and I think one of the things that we spoke about in regards to sending out a survey, if that's the way that we choose to go, is making sure that we find proactive ways to disseminate the survey results and then also talk about how we are responding to those things. Because we've heard from a couple of people that part of the reasons why the surveys have not been particularly well responded to, that's not the right sentence, but I'm saying it, is because people feel like it kind of goes into a void where they do the surveys and then either they're not paying attention, right, which is totally normal because not everybody watches the amazing reports that we get to see at board meetings. But so maybe if we can think a little bit more about how we share, well, this is what the surveys told us, and then this is how we're responding to it,
Right.
et cetera. I think that could help a lot. But I really like the idea of the Budget Advisory Council sort of shifting gears just a wee bit so people feel like their input is being considered.
And so I want to make sure, because it seems like it may be a different opinion on the board about guidance. Historically, if we're talking about budget prioritization, we usually do get good results with surveys, but I don't want to have the advisory committee work on a survey if the board doesn't want to do a survey.
I was just going to say that in a case like this, people might respond to a survey more so because it's real and tangible. It's money that they have a voice now to put in to say, this is how I think you should spend it. This is what makes the most sense to me. Some of the surveys that we do are the same surveys year after year. And after a while, people go, okay, I keep telling you, but, or whatever, or I've already responded to this, and so they're less apt to. I'm thinking of the
School satisfaction.
Yes, right.
Everybody at the same time.
So this is completely different, and I think in my opinion, we might have a better response if we said to the community, okay, we have a little bit of one-time money. What do you think? What's your thoughts? So,
I mean, I think,
and it can't hurt to do multiple things too.
I think my addition was just saying that because I do think a survey is helpful. I would say just thinking about ways we maybe can share those results differently than we have previously. I do know that we share them, but oftentimes it comes up in a report at a board meeting that maybe people aren't watching. So I'm open to other things, but I do think a survey, especially if we're going to be asking the large community, to me it makes the most sense. It's sort of the biggest bang for our buck, but I do want to be mindful of the follow through on it.
One of the ways I've seen to communicate something like that to me is effective is these infographics that they're very, colorful and they show all the statistics. So there may be a way, and that's something that Budget Advisory Committee would really welcome. Maybe they can kind of brainstorm on how to draw out opinion and then how to deliver those results. Awesome. So, yeah, there's some very talented people that are on the committee, and they'll be able to interpret and probably provide some really good contributions as to how we can go about that.
Great.
Yeah.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you so much for your,
Thank you to
and to Allie, thank you, and your staffs. I know a lot of time and work. I mean, just the amount of time you said that Allie was on the phone calling everybody. That takes time and effort and asking the right questions and trying to get some answer. The right answer would be nice, but some answer. So very appreciative.
Especially when the answers aren't really out there and you're
right
looking for them.
Yeah, it's so very new.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Let's just stop here. No, I'm just kidding. 9B, report on facilities and technologies projects, which is why you were staying up there.
You get me again. So if we can get the PowerPoint, there's just 2 items on the consent agenda tonight that are projects that are paid for out of bond funds. So we have an approval of an additive change order number 1. Again, both of these are for Disney. This project was the comprehensive utility investigation of the playground area in regards to the building project. Contractor was See Below, and this was a $1,690 increase, bringing the contract amount not to exceed $5,290, and it was just due to some additional mapping and drafting of a 2-dimensional utility map that was outside the scope of the original project. The second item is a ratification. It's item 11AA. Again, Disney. The project is to furnish material for the installation of infrastructure wiring and devices of the Bogan system for the building that just went up at Disney. The contractor is a Demco doing business as ADI. This contract amount is not to exceed $2,384.09. And this was necessary because somehow the architect left this part of the project off the drawing, so Silver Creek did not include it, so we're having to add that.
Okay, good to know.
So,
and I've been out of town for a week, and I haven't done my drive-by.
The sod went in today.
The drive-by will happen, but the sod went in.
It's really
Yay.
coming together.
Good. Thank you.
Amazing.
That's awesome. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to 10A, new and/or unfinished business. 10A, adoption of declaration of need for emergency cross-cultural language and academic development, the C-CLAD permit. Emergency bilingual cross-cultural language and academic development, the B-CLAD permit. Special education limited assignment permit, the CLAP, is that, okay, that's a new one for me. Request for certificated staff. Dr. Neiman.
Thank you, President Tabbitt. And there is actually an amended 10A.
I don't.
No, none of us have the amended version.
Do we have a copy?
Problem?
Much appreciated.
And it was just a change in the number. There was an error in the number.
Oh,
Which number?
On the second page,
Oh,
it listed,
copies
zero
are coming.
yeah,
Keep that
listed
one.
3 and 7 and 1 and 0.
Is it in the board packet?
No,
no, that's why it's not.
it's amended.
President Tabbitt?
Yes, sir.
While we distribute quickly and read the one minor change, I will move
pass that over to-
that the Board of Education adopt the Declaration of Need for Emergency Cross-Cultural Language and Academic Development CLAD permit and Emergency Bilingual Cross-Cultural Language and Academic Development B-CLAD permit and Special Education Limited Assignment permit CLAP. Request for certificated staff is presented,
Second.
or as amended, I apologize.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Ferguson, and the second, Dr. Weisberg. How many people does this affect?
7.
7.
Correct. So this is a report that we provide every year. It's for mostly our teachers who come from out of state, who don't have an authorization for CLAD or B-CLAD.
While they catch up.
So it's while they finish it, they have the ability to apply for an emergency B-CLAD or CLAD every year, up to 5 years, in order to be eligible to teach in California. And in addition, it might allow for a teacher to teach dual immersion. So if they need to get another authorization to be CLAD, it allows them to do that if they have the skill set.
Got it.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Nope. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no or nay. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. 10B, approval of the teacher assignments for 2022-2023.
President Tabbitt.
Mr. Ferguson.
I will move that the Board of Education approve teacher assignments for the 2022-2023 school year as described per Education Codes 44258.2, 44258.3A, 44258.7B, C, and D, 44263, and 44865 as presented.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second, Dr. Agakanian. Any discussion?
I had a quick question. Hey. On page 2, where it talks about employees authorized to teach subjects which are not named on their credentials, and it's all phys ed, and I know at least one of these people is not a phys ed teacher. So what is that? I mean, I don't think anyone's trying to sneak anything, but like, what does that allow? What does that allow us to do?
So the State Commission on Teaching Credentialing, California Commission on Teaching Credentialing issues credentials and allows you to teach certain subject matters.
Yes.
But then Ed Code has provisions which allow teachers to teach subjects outside of their authorizations. So
Right.
as long as they meet the requirements in the specific Ed Code that's named, then they're eligible. So it might be that they have a certain number of units on their college transcript, and they might qualify under an Ed Code. They might have proficiency in by having a specific skill. We would cover them under an Ed Code.
Okay.
So these are reviewed by the teachers union and by my staff and me, and we look at whether or not they meet the qualifications under each Ed Code.
And in this case, are you referring to the choir directors who have PE credentials because their top choirs get PE credit?
That was my okay. That makes sense.
So that's why they're there.
That was the question.
Yes. And that was the answer.
Hey, way to go, team! Because all of that I understand. I think I didn't think anything was being snuck by. I was just curious as to why phys ed, and that makes perfect sense.
That's the reason.
Man, I wish theater counted as PE for me when I did it.
You can thank Debbie Cocker for that.
Yeah,
Let's go back in time.
that was a big one.
Had to give a shout out there. And Dr. Reynolds, if you're watching, you too.
Honestly, it's a big
She as
deal.
well. But band had it. When I went to high school, we got PE credit. We had 2 periods of band. We had marching band. So, yeah. And they still do. Yeah, as they should. So, okay. All right. Any further discussion? Great. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And now consent.
President Tabbitt.
Minister Ferguson.
I'll move consent items 11A through 11AB, except for which items board members wish to pull.
Second.
Anyone? Great. So all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved on 5-0. No one here to address the board. Moving on, we have no gift report today. Okay,
President Tabbitt,
Mr. Ferguson.
can we have a point of
Point
privilege?
of personal
Oh, yes,
privilege.
yes, you
Just
may.
making sure there was nothing else that needed to be.
No, I want, yep, we're good.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Ferguson. After spending a great amount of time working to arrive at a choice I felt was right, I've made the difficult decision that I will not be running for reelection for my seat on the school board, and will be leaving the board when my term ends in December. I don't really want to take time to go into everything, but it is a position I cherish and value, and for reasons that I feel that I might not be there, I'm going on longer than I expected. I value the district. I want to make sure that the position is filled properly. So I will finish my term and let someone else move in. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fritner. I know that was a difficult, and we will spend more time at a later board meeting talking about, all of us, why we value you in the moment that we've shared with you in your term. Okay, the last thing then, our retirement. We have Ricardo Molina, Anahi Tamazian, and Timothy Trace. Thank you for your years of service. We appreciate you, and the BUSD family will miss you. Thank you. And meeting is adjourned.